Chapter 601 Never Back Down. The land of Diatoran is vast and rich in resources, filled with elite warriors. I have plenty of talents as formidable as Lord Caspian himself, declared Balthazar. Is that so? You're not bluffing? The Alliance leader questioned. Besides Lord Caspian, I also have 4 champions under my command. They're just as mighty as Lord Caspian, and can take over the world, continued Balthazar. Stop spouting nonsense. I can only see Caspian being the only one who's somewhat powerful. The rest seem to be nothing more than empty vessels. Otherwise, why would the Diatoranian god of war be running around, engaging in battles everywhere? The Alliance leader chuckled. Upon hearing this, Balthazar was momentarily taken aback and realized that his words made sense. Let's get back to the point. Vidisia and Astronia have brought this upon themselves. They provoked Diatoran first, so isn't it natural for us to retaliate? He argued. You have a point. Although you were testing the missiles, you knew there were forces from 2 other countries at sea. Yet, you still used such powerful weapons. It's hardly humane. One supersized missile could annihilate tens of thousands of soldiers, yet you used 3 of them. The Alliance leader analyzed the situation further. Vidisia and Astronia invaded South Lake City and committed atrocities. How come the International Alliance didn't intervene? What we're doing now is self-defense. Why are you making a fuss? Are you siding with the evildoers? Balthazar asked. In an instant, the Alliance leader found himself at a loss for words. The aim of the International Alliance is to uphold world peace. Whoever disturbs this peace will become an enemy of the International Alliance. Diatoran has violated international conventions and aroused public outrage, stated the leader. Vidisia, Astronia, Philrin, and Estria came together to attack Diatoran. Why didn't the International Alliance stop them? And now you're speaking up when we're trying to defend ourselves. If you're against us, just say it outright. Diatoran fears no one, Balthazar said angrily. What do you mean by that? Are you suggesting that Diatoran wants to confront? I think it's the International Alliance that wants to confront Diatoran. Balthazar replied, Do you believe I can immediately send troops over and wipe out Diatoran within half a month? The leader said menacingly. Is that so? I have some good news for you. Diatoran has hundreds of hurricane missiles, all newly developed and still in the experimental stage. I was just thinking we needed a place to test them, Balthazar said nonchalantly. The International Alliance leader was chilled to the bone upon hearing this. With that, Balthazar hung up the phone directly. He felt there was nothing more to say to the other party. After all, Diatoran had unwavering confidence and wouldn't fear anyone or yield to anyone. The Alliance leader was extremely infuriated as he listened to the beeping sound of the call. He was the leader of the International Alliance. Yet, Balthazar had the audacity to hang up the phone before he was done speaking. The members of the International Alliance present were all watching their leader. The leader didn't want to lose his dignity, so he pretended by continuing to speak on the phone. There's no use for you to beg now. I need to discuss it with the other members first. Then, he too hung up the phone, looking quite domineering. However, only he knew that everything just now was an act he put on. If others found out he was hung up by Balthazar, his reputation would take a hit. Everyone, I've spoken with Balthazar. He claims they were only testing the missiles in their own waters, which doesn't violate international conventions. What are your thoughts on this? But Diatoran must have known there were ships from Vidisia and Astronia in their waters. I think they did it on purpose. One person stood up indignantly. Diatoran is just trying to wriggle out of it. They wanted to use the missiles to destroy the naval forces of Vidisia and Astronia. A country that openly uses such large missiles can't be tolerated. Another person spoke up. We should send troops to stop them. Otherwise, Diatoran will plunge the whole world into chaos. What if other countries also start using super missiles? Yet another suggested. Caspian is indeed formidable. If we send our troops and fail to take them down, it would be embarrassing, the Alliance leader said with some worry. He's just a god of war. Is he able to fight against the International Alliance? Caspian is indeed formidable, but it's only a matter of time before we take over Diatoran. The discussions continued fervently. Balthazar also mentioned they have hundreds of hurricane missiles. If we send troops, it might trigger a major war, the leader added. Upon hearing this, the crowd was alarmed. I didn't expect Diatoran to be this quick. Yes, if we send troops, Diatoran will certainly not sit idly by. It could lead to a global disaster. Please, Alliance leader, Reconsider your actions. A few members began to oppose going to war. So what if Diatoran has hurricane missiles? If we don't take action now, where does that put us? Exactly. Diatoran has secretly stockpiled so many hurricane missiles. Their threat is significant, and they must be dealt with. The heated debate resumed. Diatoran is no longer the weak country it used to be. Now, it's a powerful nation. If we act rashly, it'll only plunge the world into chaos. So, we need to think carefully about this, the leader concluded. The alliance leader is right. Let's wait and see for now. Yes, let's not rush to a decision. Maybe Vedesia and Astronia can handle the trouble on their own. If Caspian can indeed repel them, it shows the strength of Diatoran, and perhaps we should not provoke them. All right, let's settle on that for now. The alliance leader agreed. At the Hudson residence, a disheveled deputy general rushed to Robert's side and reported, "Report, champion, the enemy is too strong. We can't hold them off." Upon hearing this, Robert's face became even grimmer. He was considering contacting Viktor, and hoped Viktor could provide some support. Seeking help from the International Alliance and Vedesia seemed unrealistic now. By the time their reinforcements arrived, he would be finished. Chapter 602 Interdependence. Robert, we're currently engaged in a life-and-death fight with the forces of Diatoran. I'm afraid I can't come to your aid, Viktor said. What? Are the forces of Diatoran attacking your side too? How many are there? Robert asked. About 40,000, Viktor replied. Don't you have over 100,000 troops? 40,000 shouldn't be much of a problem for you. I'm barely holding on here, Robert urgently exclaimed. Weren't you also leading over 100,000 troops into South Lake City? How could you not hold out? Viktor asked in surprise. In his view, Vedesia shouldn't be so weak. Diatoran used missiles against us and wiped out nearly half of my garrison. Troops. Now, I only have about 30 to 40,000 troops left by my side, Robert said anxiously. What? The missiles Diatoran launched earlier actually hit your garrison troops? Viktor asked in astonishment. He had originally thought those missiles were meant for him, but they missed their mark. But who would have thought the target was Robert's troops? That's right, we're both in danger now. If I fall to Diatoran, they'll come after you next, Robert said. I can't mobilize my troops now. What if the other party suddenly turns to attack? Me? Viktor was now also feeling anxious. He didn't dare to move his troops elsewhere. The two of us must lead our forces into South Lake City. We must unite now. Only by doing so can we defeat the forces of Diatoran. We can wait for reinforcements then. If I fall to the hands of Diatoran, your fate won't be any better. We must unite now to deal with Caspian. Robert laid out his thoughts. Viktor felt that Robert made sense. If Robert was defeated, he would be in danger too. He wasn't sure he alone could handle Caspian's massive army. Now, the two of them must unite to confront Caspian. All right, I'll immediately mobilize 30,000 troops to your location, Viktor said. Upon hearing his words, Robert was overjoyed. I'll wait for your troops. I hope they arrive quickly, or else I won't be able to hold on much longer. I understand. I'll give the orders immediately. You must hold on, Viktor said, before hanging up the phone. Then, he began issuing orders and sent 30,000 of his troops to reinforce Robert. He currently had over 100,000 troops, so it wouldn't be a problem to send some out. Viktor needed to make sure Robert's troops weren't wiped out, or else he would be in danger too. Caspian had long anticipated that Robert would seek help from Viktor. He had already sent the armored battalion to intercept them halfway. Viktor's 30,000 troops rushed toward Robert's location at full speed. Time was of the essence now, and they had to seize every moment. Champion, we should break through as quickly as possible, or we might be surrounded by Diatoran's large army, one of Viktor's officers said. That's right. Caspian has only sent 50,000 troops. We have nearly 100,000. We can definitely wipe them out, a deputy echoed. Even if we charge out, what's the use? Our naval forces have been wiped out, and we have no retreat. It's better to stay here and rely on the terrain to resist Diatoran's forces. If we head to the coastline, there's not even a cover there. We'll be doomed for sure. We can only wait for the International Alliance's army to come to our rescue, Viktor said. His deputy nodded at this. They were now isolated soldiers, and they could only continue to stay here. Their only hope was the International Alliance. The 50,000 troops sent by Caspian hadn't attacked at their full capacity yet. Their role was to hold Viktor back. buying enough time for Caspian to deal with Robert. At this moment, Viktor suddenly thought of something. How did Diatoran's missiles accurately target Robert's garrison troops? It must be because of the Diatoranian spy, Lena. She must have transmitted the information to Caspian, which resulted in the subsequent events. Continue to interrogate the Diatoranian spy. I refuse to believe she knows nothing, Viktor said fiercely. Yes. Kenzie nodded. Everyone had been distracted by the missiles just now, and completely forgotten about Lena. Kenzie led his men into the room where Lena was being held. But when they pushed open the door, they found that she was gone. Seeing this, everyone was extremely shocked. Shit, she's escaped. Quickly search to see if she's still in the villa, Kenzie said angrily. Would she be foolish enough to still stay in the villa? Nicholas asked. Outside are the troops of Champion Viktor. She definitely wouldn't escape easily. Maybe she's still inside the villa, Kenzie said. Upon hearing this, Nicholas felt Kenzie's words made sense. He was extremely fearful now. The look in Lena's eyes earlier was as if she wanted to eat him alive. Now that she was free, he was in danger. Kenzie's subordinates began a thorough search of the villa. Meanwhile, Kenzie went to report this matter to Viktor immediately. Nicholas felt that nowhere was safe, so he decided to stick with Viktor. After all, there were many soldiers around Viktor, and he wouldn't have to worry about being assassinated. Champion Viktor, Lena has escaped. Kenzie came up to Viktor nervously. What? How could she escape when she was securely tied up? Viktor thundered. We all rushed out just now, so she must have taken advantage of the chaos to escape, Kenzie said. What a bunch of useless people. You can't even keep an eye on someone tied up, Viktor said angrily. He was already somewhat upset, and now, his mood was even worse. We were all distracted by the missiles, so we forgot to guard her, Kenzie muttered. Quickly search the villa. She wouldn't have escaped so easily from here, Viktor said. I've already ordered my men to conduct a thorough search inside the villa. Champion, she's very skillful. Now that she's hiding, you must be careful to avoid being assassinated, Kenzie reminded cautiously. Upon hearing this, Viktor felt somewhat uneasy. He hadn't thought much of it before, but now that Kenzie mentioned it, he felt like there were eyes watching him from the shadows. This made him very uncomfortable. Hence, Lena must be captured. Otherwise, Viktor wouldn't be at peace. Chapter 603 Ambush. Step up patrols around the perimeter and send more people to protect me. Don't let unrelated individuals come near me, Viktor instructed his chief of security. Yes, sir, the chief responded. Champion, what about Mr. Archer? Nicholas was standing right behind them in this instant. Keep him away from me, Viktor ordered. He didn't want Nicholas to follow him around, as he didn't trust him. After all, Nicholas was a Diatoranian. If he overheard the conversations between Viktor and his subordinates and then leaked the information, it would only put Viktor at a disadvantage. Mr. Archer, please keep your distance from our champion, the chief said. Upon hearing this, Nicholas was completely flustered. He followed Viktor around because it was safer than being alone. However, he didn't expect Viktor to not let him get close. Champion Viktor, I just insulted the spy. She must be hiding now. If I stay away from you, I'm afraid she'll assassinate me. So, let me stay with you, Nicholas pleaded. No, I need to command my troops to fight against Diatoran. You're a Diatoranian, so you absolutely can't be by my side, Viktor said. As the champion, Viktor had to see the bigger picture. Although Nicholas seemed to have pledged allegiance to him, he couldn't afford to trust Nicholas completely. The more Nicholas wanted to be by his side, the more he needed to keep him away. But I've already defected to Estronia. I'm part of Estronia now, Nicholas said anxiously. Viktor clearly didn't believe him. No matter who you are, you can't be this close to me. We're in the middle of a war, so you'd better leave. Viktor knew that a coward like Nicholas couldn't be a spy, but he still wanted to kick him out. You're just trying to get me killed, aren't you? What if Lena wants to kill me? What should I do? Nicholas asked anxiously. Who do you think you are? Why would Lena want to kill a nobody like you? I almost took away her virginity. She must want to tear me to pieces now, Nicholas answered. Don't worry. She won't kill you. If she does, she'll expose herself. She's not dumb enough to risk her own safety for someone like you. Right now, the person she wants to deal with the most should be me, Viktor analyzed. Nicholas nodded at his words. Indeed, his status couldn't be compared against Viktor. If Lena were to assassinate him, it would only expose herself and it wouldn't be worth it. Mr. Archer, You're most familiar with the Archer residence. You should know where Lena might be hiding. Go assist Kaiser in the search. As long as we capture her, we won't have to worry anymore, Viktor said. All right. Nicholas nodded. He didn't dare to stay by Viktor's side for fear of angering him. With that, Nicholas followed Kaiser to begin searching the villa. At the Hudson residence. General, bad news. We're falling and can't hold on anymore. Diatoran's troops are about to attack. A deputy hurriedly ran over to report. No matter what, we must hold on. Champion Viktor has sent his troops to support us, Robert said. Once they collapsed, they were done for. When will they arrive? We really can't hold on anymore, the deputy asked anxiously. It won't be long. I talked to Viktor on the phone just over 10 minutes ago. His troops will arrive in 20 minutes, Robert answered. Caspian and Phoenix Vanguard hadn't entered the battle yet. Caspian was waiting for the perfect opportunity to lead his team into the battle and then capture Robert. At this moment, the reinforcements sent by Viktor were on their way. Suddenly, there were sounds of gunfire on both sides of the road. These reinforcements were only focused on rushing and didn't pay attention to their surroundings at all. The armored battalion, who had been lying in ambush for a while, began their attack. They had been waiting there for a long time according to Caspian's plan. 40,000 armored soldiers were lying in ambush on both sides of the road. These reinforcements were frightened and didn't even know how to retaliate. They were in a mess. After a round of attacks, nearly half of the enemy troops were dead. Quick! Counter! Attack! Counter! Attack! The leading commander roared. These reinforcements began to counter. Attack. The two sides engaged in fierce gun battles. Although the reinforcements came to their senses and attacked, they were already at a disadvantage. The armored battalion was formidable to begin with, and coupled with their advantageous positions, they forced the enemy troops to defeat. The armored battalion was taught by Caspian, so their skills were amazing. After 2 rounds of attacks, the commander saw heavy losses and immediately called Viktor. Champion, we were ambushed, the commander said anxiously. What? Viktor was somewhat surprised. Why would there be an ambush halfway? Could it be that Caspian anticipated that he would come to Robert's aid? We've lost half of our troops now. If we continue, our entire army will be wiped out, the commander said urgently. You absolutely can't retreat. You must break through and meet up with Robert's troops. Even if you retreat now, the enemy won't let you go, Viktor said. But these soldiers are all armored soldiers. We're no match for them. You only have one way to go, and that's to break through. Retreating will only lead to a dead end. You must break through, Viktor said firmly. He didn't allow the reinforcements to retreat because he was considering his own safety. If they withdrew, the armored soldiers would surely pursue them. By then, he would be in danger. So, he ordered the troops to resist with their lives. As long as they were able to buy him time, it would be worth it. Viktor's only hope was to wait for the support from the International Alliance. Otherwise, both he and Robert would die in Diatoran. Understood. The commander could only grit his teeth and follow orders. He hung up the phone and began to command his subordinates, trying to break through. The soldiers charged fiercely with the determination to die, but the armored soldiers had blocked their way, and they had no chance of breaking through. At the Hudson residence, a conversation was taking place. Champion, we only have less than 20,000 troops left. What should we do now? A deputy hurriedly reported. What? We've only been fighting for a short time, and we're left with so few troops? Are you all useless? Robert roared. The Diatoranians came prepared. Their weapons are advanced, and they outnumber us. We're simply no match, the deputy said helplessly. Hold on a bit longer. The reinforcements will be here soon, Robert said. But it's already been half an hour, and they still haven't shown up. We really can't hold on anymore. We'll be defeated soon. Chapter 604 Desperation. Don't panic. Let me give Viktor a call and see what's going on. Robert also felt that something was amiss. With such a short distance, Viktor's reinforcements should have arrived by now. Robert was extremely anxious now. If this continued, he would be doomed. Champion Viktor, I'm only left with less than 20,000 men. What's taking your reinforcements so long? Robert asked. Champion Robert, my team was ambushed by the Diatoranian soldiers. They're trying to break through the attack now, Viktor answered. What? How could this happen? Robert was dumbfounded. Caspian must have thought of this. So he set up an ambush. He's really despicable, Viktor said. Tell them to break out quickly. If they don't come soon, I won't be able to hold on, Robert answered. I've already ordered them to break out no matter what. However, the enemy they're facing is the armored battalion. It might be difficult for them to break through. Even if they manage to escape, there probably won't be many left, Viktor said. Hearing about the armored battalion, Robert felt even more despair. It was said that the armored battalion was powerful. This time, he was really in big trouble. Send more troops over. If your soldiers outnumber them, they can definitely break out, Robert said. All right, I'll send more troops. About 30,000. I only have around 100,000 troops in total, and half of them have gone to support you. I've done everything I can, Viktor added. I understand. As long as you send more troops, they can definitely annihilate Caspian's armored battalion. When our troops meet up, we can definitely turn the tide, Robert said. Viktor also had the same idea, as they had no other choice now. If Robert's side fell, Caspian would definitely come after him. If it weren't for the greater good, Viktor would never take such a risk. Fortunately, he still had plenty of troops, around 70 to 80,000. They could definitely hold out for a while. That's all for now. I'll immediately send reinforcements. You must hold on. With that, Viktor hung up the phone. He then issued another order to send 30,000 reinforcements. The Diatoranian troops didn't stop them. Instead, they intentionally let the reinforcements go so that Viktor's forces would become fewer and fewer. The 30,000 troops sent by Viktor met up with the previous forces. The armored battalion once again engaged in a bloody battle with them. After a night of rest, the armored soldiers were now fully capable of fighting. They had already familiarized themselves with the terrain nearby, so dealing with these reinforcements was a piece of cake. Meanwhile, at the Hudson residence, Robert's troops waited for another 20 minutes. However, the reinforcements still hadn't arrived. Now, everyone had lost hope. Champion! The reinforcements haven't arrived yet, and we only have 8,000 soldiers left. A disheveled deputy ran in. Upon hearing this, Robert felt extremely uneasy. Obviously, Viktor's reinforcements were still locked in battle with the armored battalion. In such a short time, it was impossible for them to come to his aid. I'll understand. You hold on for a while. I'll think of a solution, Robert said with a headache. With that, the deputy quickly turned and ran out. Robert felt something was wrong. It seemed that he couldn't rely on Viktor and would have to rely on himself. Instantly, he made a phone call to the coastal defense forces. There were still 30 to 40,000 troops on the coast. Originally, he didn't want to mobilize these troops, but the situation was urgent now. He had no other choice. Bring your men and come to my aid, Robert ordered. Champion, we're currently engaged in battle with Diatoran's troops and can't break free right now, the leader said. Why are you also fighting with the Diatoranian troops? Robert asked in surprise. That's right. The enemy is fierce, and we're on the verge of collapse, the leader replied. Robert felt as if he almost passed out. This was the first time he was feeling this helpless. Champion! Champion! Why aren't you speaking? After waiting for more than 10 seconds without a response from Robert, the leader asked. Robert snapped out of it and quickly said, It's okay. You must hold the coastline no matter what. Only by holding the coastline can reinforcements reach South Lake City. Champion, the enemy's firepower is too fierce. We can't hold on anymore. Can you send reinforcements to support us? The leader asked. I can't even save myself right now. I have no way to help you, Robert said angrily. He originally wanted the coastal defense forces to come to his aid, but unexpectedly, they were asking him for help. Diatoran's troops are too powerful. We can't attack now, the leader said. No matter what, you must hold on. With that, Robert hung up the phone. Then, he immediately called the King of Vidizia. Your Majesty, Diatoran has launched a full-scale attack on us. I can't hold on anymore. When will the International Alliance take action? Robert asked urgently. I've already submitted the appeal, but the International Alliance hasn't given me a definite answer yet. It seems they're still observing the situation, the king said. Why? Diatoran used super missiles, which violates international conventions. Why isn't the International Alliance taking action? Robert asked incredulously. Their response to me was that Diatoran only tested the missiles in their own waters, which doesn't violate international laws. Hence, the International Alliance won't send troops for now, the King of Vidizia answered. Hundreds of thousands of our naval forces were annihilated by the hurricane missiles. This is outrageous. Why won't they send troops? Robert was fuming in anger. It's because our naval forces entered another country's territorial waters, so we're at fault. There's nothing we can do about it, the king stated helplessly. Diatoran is just giving excuses. They must have known that our naval forces were stationed there. Why can't the International Alliance see through this? Of course, they see through it. I just don't understand why the International Alliance is unwilling to take action. Perhaps they're afraid of Diatoran, the king said. How is that possible? The International Alliance is such a powerful organization. Why would they be afraid of Diatoran? Robert asked in shock. I heard that Diatoran has a secret weapon that has intimidated the International Alliance, the king said. What? What kind of weapon do they have? Could they be lying? Robert asked. The king of Diatoran said they still have hundreds of hurricane missiles. If the International Alliance intervenes in this battle, Diatoran will launch these missiles. Chapter 605 Battle Between Champions. What should we do now? We're defenseless in South Lake City. If the International Alliance doesn't intervene, we won't be able to hold out much longer, Robert said anxiously. You're the champion of Vidisia. Don't you have a strategy? Asked the king. I may be a champion, but I don't have any troops at my disposal right now. Your Majesty, please send troops to help me. That way, I'll still have some hope, Robert requested. I can't send any troops now. If I do that, our troops will only die in the face of Diatoran's hurricane missiles, the king said. But you can't just stand by and watch me die here. If I lose, Vidisia will suffer heavy losses, Robert said. I have no other choice. We're thousands of miles apart, and there's no way I can come to your rescue. Then contact Filren and Estria. Let them send troops to support. At least they can help me break the siege, Robert suggested after considering every possible solution. All right, I understand. I'll contact them immediately. The king also knew that this was the only option now. He didn't want Robert to die in Diatoran either. The king of Vidisia hung up the phone and began contacting Filren and Estria. But these two countries were extremely afraid of Diatoran after the previous battles. Moreover, Diatoran had hurricane missiles, which made them even more reluctant to intervene. Although they promised Vidisia, they didn't send troops. They weren't foolish. They knew that the two champions of Vidisia and Astronia had been defeated by Caspian, so they chose not to attack Diatoran. They decided to wait and see. If Robert and Viktor could eliminate Caspian, they would definitely send support. But if Robert and Viktor were unable to defeat Caspian together, the two countries wouldn't dare to provoke Diatoran anymore. At the Hudson residence, Robert was pacing back and forth while feeling impatient. He hadn't heard any news from Filren or Estria sending their troops out. Robert knew that he was in dire straits now, and he could only give it his all. The people of the Hudson family were terrified when they saw that Robert's troops were about to be defeated. It seems that Robert is going to fail. What should we do? Are we just going to sit here and wait for death? Richard said, trembling with fear. I didn't expect Vidisia and Asronia to be so useless. What a bunch of rubbish. Grant was also anxious. If Robert was defeated, the Hudson family would be over. Who could have predicted that this situation would happen? We might as well have fled to Garthram, Richard said with regret. It's all because of you. You insisted that our family join Vidisia. Otherwise, we would have left long ago, and we wouldn't have ended up in this situation. Grant couldn't contain his rage at the thought of the downfall of the Hudson family. He could only vent all his anger on his grandson. Grandfather, how can you blame me for everything? Everyone in the Hudson family agreed to join Vidisia at the time, Richard said helplessly. How did it become his mistake now when everyone agreed to the plan back then? It seems that Alklei's idea was right. She's much smarter than us, Grant lamented. Outside of the Hudson residence, a conversation was taking place. Lord Caspian, there's not much left of Videsla soldiers. Shall we attack now? Macy was getting impatient. She just wanted to rush out. Be patient and wait a little longer. Everyone, get ready, Caspian ordered. Yes, the members of Phoenix Vanguard answered. At the thought that they would soon be able to fight alongside Lord Caspian, the members of Phoenix Vanguard were extremely excited. Time passed slowly, and 5 minutes went by. Robert's soldiers had been rendered completely defenseless. Seeing this, Caspian immediately ordered, Phoenix Vanguard, follow me and break out. The members of Phoenix Vanguard had long wanted to fight. At Caspian's order, they eagerly rushed out. Caspian took the lead and charged into the Hudson residence. Attack! The members of Phoenix Vanguard followed Caspian's lead and charged out. With only 4 to 5,000 of Robert's troops left, they never expected that the vanguard of Diatoran would appear. The soldiers of Videsia were terrified when they saw Caspian leading his forces. Instantly, the members of Phoenix Vanguard continuously fired their guns at the enemy. The enemy soldiers were already scared out of their wits and had lost all their fighting spirit. They just wanted to escape quickly. The members of Phoenix Vanguard had undergone special training and coordinated perfectly with each other. The enemy forces couldn't resist the attack of Phoenix Vanguard at all. Coupled with the excitement of the Phoenix Vanguard members, they were unstoppable. Caspian wielded the diatanium dagger, and the cold light flickered among the crowd. Every time he swung his dagger, he could kill an enemy soldier. Seeing his dominance, the enemy soldiers dared not retaliate. Caspian led Phoenix Vanguard in a charge and quickly reached the gate of the Hudson residence. Inside the Hudson residence, a commotion broke out. "Champion! Caspian is leading Phoenix Vanguard here!" A deputy rushed in. Hearing this, Robert's heart trembled. He had long guessed that Caspian would come to attack. "Caspian, I've been waiting for you," he said. "Champion, what should we do? We can't stop Caspian's attack," the deputy asked urgently. "Don't panic. As long as we can kill Caspian, we can turn the tide." Robert knew that he couldn't rely on others. He could only fight Caspian to the death. As long as he could kill Caspian, it would definitely intimidate the soldiers of Diatoran. By then, he and his troops could take advantage of the chaos and break out. "Champion, they're already at the gate of the villa. Let's figure out a way to break out quickly." The deputy was now in a state of confusion and didn't know what to do. "What's the point of breaking out? Do we have a place to escape to?" Robert answered indifferently. "Do we just sit and wait for death?" the deputy said. "Caspian is a human too. If he dares to charge in, I'll definitely kill him," Robert said fiercely. He had no choice now but to fight Caspian one-on-one. This way, he would at least have a chance of winning. If he were to fight against Caspian's troops, he would undoubtedly be defeated. "Go tell Caspian that I want to fight him one-on-one. Let's see if he dares to accept it or not," Robert said. Chapter 606, the final trump card. Caspian has sufficient forces. "What if he refuses to duel with you one-on-one?" a deputy asked. "If he refuses, you tell him that I'll do my best to defeat him and his troops. If I die, I won't let him off easy. Before I go down, I'll definitely make sure to sacrifice a few more Diatoranian soldiers," Robert said. "Champion, what if we take Alicia and Henry as hostages and then negotiate with Caspian to let us leave? We won't need to fight to the death," the deputy suggested. "You're really foolish. Caspian is the Diatoranian god of war. He'll definitely consider the bigger picture. It's impossible for him to let us leave just because of the Stewart siblings. Besides, what value do the Stewart siblings have?" Robert said helplessly. "Of course, they have some value. After all, Alicia and Henry are relatives of Caspian's wife. Will he really turn a blind eye? He won't be that heartless, right?" the deputy said. "Henry has long been prepared to join us, so Caspian definitely won't care about him. As for Alicia, she still has some courage. As for what Caspian thinks, I can't say for sure. I think we can try. Maybe it'll work?" the deputy suggested. "Alright, let's give it a try. Take the Stewart siblings out and tell Caspian to cease fire temporarily. Let's start the operation immediately," Robert said. He was also afraid that Caspian wouldn't duel with him. But with the Stewart siblings in his hands, they were a kind of insurance. As long as Caspian was willing to duel with him, there was a chance to defeat him and change the current circumstances. "Yes!" the deputy ran out. Robert wouldn't go out now. If he went out now and got hit by a bullet, he would be dead. Moreover, he still needed to command the overall situation. Besides, he needed to carefully think about how to break out of here after defeating Caspian. Robert quickly made another call to Viktor. "Viktor, can your reinforcements still make it?" Robert asked. "They're currently fighting with the armored battalion and can't come to your aid for now," Viktor answered. "You can send more people over. With more people, they can surely defeat the armored battalion," Robert said anxiously. "I've already sent out nearly half of my troops. I can't make any more moves now, or I'll be in danger myself," Viktor said. He had already done his best. "If your troops can come to my aid, I have a way to change the current predicament," Robert said. "Champion Robert, don't try to fool me. We have no chance of winning now. The only way is to delay time until the International Alliance's support arrives. What's your plan?" Viktor thought Robert was definitely trying to deceive him into sending troops. "LLL duel with Caspian later. If Caspian accepts the challenge, I can kill him." As long as he's dead and your troops come to my aid, we can directly wipe out all of Diatoran's forces. Then, we can join forces and take over South Lake City, Robert said. Caspian has almost a 100% chance of victory. Why would he bother dueling with you? Viktor asked. I still have several thousand soldiers. If Caspian refuses to duel with me, then I'll have a battle with him. I'll sacrifice a few of his soldiers. I believe Caspian wouldn't want to see such a scene. Besides, his wife's younger brother and sister are in my hand. This is also my trump card. I don't believe Caspian will remain indifferent, Robert said confidently. All right, if Caspian is willing to duel with you, I believe that you can definitely defeat him with your strength. Viktor knew that Robert was very strong, and he had a chance against Caspian. Then quickly order your troops to come and support me. After I defeat Caspian, the confidence of the Diatoranian troops will definitely be shaken. By then, we'll definitely win. Robert was confident. All right, I'll give the orders immediately. You must defeat Caspian. Whether we can break free or not depends on you, Viktor said. Now, he could only rely on Robert. Don't worry, my strength is almost at the ultimate supreme grandmaster level. I'm more than capable of dealing with Caspian, Robert said arrogantly. Outside of the Hudson residence, the Stewart siblings were still hanging there. Henry heard the gunfire around him and trembled with fear. He was terrified that a bullet would hit him. Henry, our brother-in-law is here to save us. Alicia watched as Caspian charged out with the diatanium dagger in hand. She saw hope, so she started calling Caspian her brother-in-law. Henry lifted his head and indeed saw Caspian and a group of people in the distance. Caspian, we're here, save us, Henry shouted. Caspian saw the Stewart siblings hanging in midair in the distance. They had been beaten to a pulp and were covered in blood. However, he still needed to command the battle and couldn't charge to save them directly. Moreover, there were still many of Robert's soldiers to deal with. At this moment, Robert's subordinates rushed out. Quickly release the Stewart siblings and take them as hostages, a deputy shouted. Some soldiers guarding the gate hurriedly complied. Then, they made the Stewart siblings kneel on the ground and held guns to their heads. The Stewart siblings just saw a glimmer of hope, but now, they were taken as hostages. They were plunged back into despair. Stop the attack, Caspian! Champion Robert has a message for you, a deputy shouted hoarsely. When Caspian saw that the enemy had paused in their attacks and the Stewart siblings were in great danger, he ordered his men to stop attacking for the time being. Caspian was very curious about what Robert had in mind. Phoenix Vanguard also ceased their attack and surrounded Caspian. They did this to protect him and to prevent anyone from ambushing him. What does Robert have to say? Tell him to surrender quickly and I might consider leaving him a whole corpse, Caspian said. When Robert heard the temporary ceasefire outside, he ordered his guards to lead the way. He said, I'm going out to meet Caspian. Yes! Hundreds of guards surrounded Robert as he walked out. The Hudson family members were extremely puzzled when they heard the gunfire suddenly stop. What's going on? Why did they stop fighting? Could it be that Robert has already been defeated? What should we do if Robert is defeated? Will we be killed by Caspian? The people of the Hudson family spoke with fear. They had no idea what to do now. Let's go out and see what's happening outside. Anyway, we have no better choice now, Grant said. Chapter 607 Duel Between Two Gods of War. Alright, let's see what's going on. Everyone nodded. With fear, the Hudson family walked outside. At this moment, Robert and his guards had arrived outside the villa. Caspian and Robert, the two powerful gods of war, had officially met. Caspian, I want to challenge you one-on-one, Robert said. You have no way out. There's no need for me to duel with you, Caspian said coldly. What? Are you afraid? They say you're the top among the 5 war gods. Is it just a lie? We can duel to determine the outcome of this war. Are you brave enough to face me? Robert asked. I know I already have the upper hand and can eliminate you directly. Why should I duel with you unless you can convince me to do it? Caspian naturally wasn't afraid of Robert, but he felt there was no need for a duel. Even if you're confident of victory now, I still have thousands of soldiers. If you refuse to duel with me, I'll fight to the death with you. Before I die, I'll definitely take some soldiers of yours down with me, Robert said fiercely. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and many snipers appeared on the roof of the Hudson residence. These people had long been lying in wait on the roof just for this moment. If you agree to duel with me one-on-one and I lose, my men will surrender directly. That way, you won't lose anything. If you disagree, I promise to do my best and kill a few hundred of your people. Do you want to see these beautiful female special forces die because of you? Robert continued. He could only try his best to persuade Caspian. Upon hearing Robert's words, Caspian thought they made some sense. He would suffer some losses to wipe out Robert's thousands of troops. Caspian didn't want to see the members of Phoenix Vanguard die because of these animals. After all, the members of Phoenix Vanguard were all in their prime. If he could save them, why not? Besides, he had learned some techniques from the Eldorian scroll fragment. Caspian was absolutely confident that he could defeat Robert. As the Diatoranian god of war, if he could minimize casualties and achieve victory, he was willing to do so. Caspian heard that Robert loved swords. He also wanted to see if Robert was as powerful as rumored. All right, I agree to duel with you one-on-one. Robert was somewhat surprised when he heard this. He originally thought Caspian would refuse, but Caspian didn't hesitate at all. At first, Robert wanted to threaten Caspian with the Stewart siblings, but it seemed that there was no longer a need for that. When Macy and the members of Phoenix Vanguard heard Caspian's decision, they were all taken aback. Lord Caspian, we currently have the upper hand. As long as you give the order, we can annihilate the enemy. You don't need to take risks and fight Robert, Macy said. Yes, it's a bit dangerous to fight him one-on-one. We can just send our large army to crush them, a member of Phoenix Vanguard said. I'm doing this for your own good. This way, everyone doesn't have to fight. Robert still has thousands of men. If we want to wipe them all out, we'll definitely suffer some casualties, which isn't worth it, Caspian explained. Lord Caspian, we're not afraid of death. Yes, we don't mind dying as long as we can annihilate the enemy. We can't let Lord Caspian take risks. The members of Phoenix Vanguard spoke. What? Don't you trust me? Do you think I, the Diatoranian god of war, can't defeat Robert? Caspian asked. It's not that we don't trust you, but we've heard that Robert is also very powerful. What if something unexpected happens? A member of Phoenix Vanguard said. If something happens to me, you just rush out and kill them, Caspian said. We can't afford to lose you, Lord Caspian. So you shouldn't fight. The members of Phoenix Vanguard persuaded him. I've made up my mind. Stop convincing me. I need to make Robert see the difference between us, Caspian said firmly. After hearing Caspian's words, the others didn't say much. Very well, Caspian. You're indeed the god of war for making such a bold move, Robert said. You dare to invade Diatoran and commit atrocities. I'll definitely kill you, Caspian said. Is that so? It's still uncertain who will win. I'm also a champion with formidable strength. Moreover, I'm now on the verge of becoming a supreme grandmaster. I don't believe you're stronger than me, Robert said confidently. He had always been proud and didn't want to lose his dignity in front of Caspian. Really? A supreme grandmaster? Interesting. Then let me show you my strength, and you'll understand the difference between us. Caspian smiled. Then let's have a competition. My swordsmanship is not bad either. Since Diatoran is known for its martial arts, I want to see how powerful you are, Robert said. Since Caspian had agreed to duel with him, the rest was easy. Robert no longer hesitated and had his men bring out his warrior's sword. No more nonsense. Let's get started. Caspian was too lazy to continue wasting time with Robert. The sooner he defeated Robert, the sooner this battle would end. Caspian tightened the grip on the diatanium dagger, ready for battle. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Neither Caspian nor Robert made the first move. They both wanted to see how the other would respond before making their moves. The Hudson family members stood outside and observed from a distance. At first, they thought Robert was sure to lose. Caspian still had a large army, while Robert had few soldiers left. But now that Caspian had agreed to duel Robert, they felt a glimmer of hope. They knew that Robert was very powerful and known for his swordsmanship. If Robert could defeat Caspian, then the confidence of the Diatoranian soldiers would surely die. They could survive. Henry and Alicia silently prayed for Caspian. Only if Caspian defeated Robert could they be safe. Brother-in-law. This person isn't easy to deal with. Be careful. I hope you can defeat him. Henry placed all his hopes on Caspian as only he could save them now. Chapter 608 Spectacular Duel. Shut up! You traitor! Who's your brother-in-law? Caspian said angrily. He was about to duel with Robert and didn't want anyone to distract him. Henry wanted to betray the country long ago. Hence, Caspian had no sympathy for him. Hearing Caspian's words, Henry suddenly felt afraid. It seemed that even if he was rescued, his days ahead wouldn't be easy, as Caspian would definitely hold him accountable. Alicia felt ashamed when she remembered how she had targeted Caspian and Willow, especially now when Caspian had come to their rescue despite their past conflicts. Right at this moment, Robert saw that Caspian was distracted and tightened his grip on the longsword in his hand. He slashed forward. In an instant, a cold light flashed. The killing intent around Robert surged as he aimed his sword at Caspian's chest. He was an unparalleled master with the sword, and his strength was quite extraordinary. When Caspian saw Robert's sudden attack, his expression stiffened as he looked at the longsword in Robert's hand. He knew he couldn't retreat as Phoenix Vanguard was behind him. If he dodged, they might be injured. This was something that Caspian didn't wish to witness. He tightened his grip on the diatanium dagger and held it in front of his chest. A piercing sound rang out as Caspian blocked Robert's attack. Then, Caspian stepped back several steps. He was shocked as he realized that Robert was indeed quite powerful. Robert, on the other hand, was also surprised to see Caspian directly block his attack. After stabilizing his posture, Caspian quickly rushed forward and gripped the dagger tightly before swinging it at Robert. In an instant, a circular wave of energy spread out in all directions. Seeing this, Robert was momentarily stunned as he didn't expect Caspian to be able to release energy externally. It seemed that Caspian's strength was also the same as his. Robert leaped and dodged his attack skillfully. Caspian seized the opportunity when Robert was in mid-air and launched an attack toward him using a technique from the Eldorian scroll fragment. He became like a shadow and charged toward Robert. The two gods of war collided head-on. Seeing Caspian's fierce attack, Robert dared not be careless. He could only brace himself to withstand Caspian's attack. However, Robert miraculously dodged Caspian's attack. Seeing this, Caspian felt extremely surprised. Normally, a person was most vulnerable in mid-air. It seemed that Robert had quite some skills. At this moment, Robert returned to the ground. After the previous exchange, he also felt the pressure from Caspian. Caspian's strength was much more powerful than he had imagined. Robert absolutely dared not show any flaws in front of Caspian. Just as Caspian returned to the ground, he found that Robert was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, a surge of killing intent came from behind him. Immediately, Caspian turned around and saw Robert coming at him. "Lord Caspian, be careful!" Macy shouted loudly when she saw Caspian in danger. She had just noticed that Robert had appeared behind Caspian. Earlier, Robert seemed to have disappeared into thin air. His movements were too fast. Without Macy's reminder, Caspian also sensed the anomaly. Robert originally thought he could successfully ambush Caspian from behind, but he didn't know that Caspian's perception would be so keen. He could already feel the power of the dagger in Caspian's hand. It was no ordinary dagger. Although the dagger was small, its power was strong. It could almost be compared to the longsword he had in hand. Robert's ambush ended in failure. Seeing the dangerous scene just now, Macy and Phoenix Vanguard felt extremely nervous. Caspian didn't pause and launched another attack on Robert. He realized that only through such battles could he improve his integration with the Eldorian scroll fragment. Seizing the opportunity, Caspian prepared to deliver a fatal blow to Robert. The surrounding soldiers watched this scene from afar, as this wasn't something they could intervene. If Robert were to be killed, they would undoubtedly die as well. Robert kept moving, while Caspian stood there observing his movements. The two gods of war engaged in a spectacular battle. Everyone eagerly awaited the final outcome. The Hudson family hoped that Robert would emerge victorious. Only then would there be a chance for them to survive. At this moment, Caspian and Robert both leaped onto the rooftop to continue their battle. At Riverside Villa, Willow suddenly felt a bit anxious. "I wonder how Caspian's army is doing now?" Willow asked worriedly. "Caspian is the Diatoranian god of war. Don't worry, he'll definitely win," Zoe comforted her. "But I'm still worried about him." "Caspian is not an actual god, after all," Willow said. "Caspian has so many guards with him. He'll be safe," Zoe said. "He went with his subordinates to rescue Alicia and Henry. Robert is also in the Hudson family. They'll definitely have a big battle. And the outcome is uncertain." Willow frowned. She didn't doubt Caspian, but she felt that the situation this time was more dangerous than before. "Forget it. Let's not think about it. Let's wait for the result." "Being anxious now won't help at all," Zoe persuaded her. On the rooftop of the Hudson residence, Caspian and Robert had been fighting for nearly half an hour. Both looked somewhat battered. Robert couldn't endure any longer and used his most powerful move. He swung his longsword, and several sword shadows slashed toward Caspian. In an instant, Caspian was surrounded by these shadows. Even he couldn't distinguish which was real and which was fake for a short while. Robert only had one sword, so there was absolutely no way for him to produce 3 sword shadows. Only one was real. Robert was extremely confident in this move of his. More and more shadows gathered, all aiming at Caspian. This was Robert's most powerful technique. If he didn't have the strength, he wouldn't dare challenge Caspian. Macy and Phoenix Vanguard were extremely terrified when they saw so many sword shadows attacking Caspian. If Caspian couldn't take this attack, he would be in danger. While everyone held their breath, Caspian suddenly made his move. With the Diatanium dagger in hand and a powerful move from the Eldorian scroll fragment, he executed a skill called Shifting Forms. With this move, Caspian's move became unpredictable, and the enemy couldn't catch his trace. Seeing Caspian's skill, everyone eagerly awaited the outcome. They knew that the next move would determine victory and defeat. This meant that the fate of Videsia's soldiers and the Hudson family would soon be known. Chapter 609, Robert's Death. If Robert was defeated by Caspian, then the soldiers of Videsia would all become prisoners, and the Hudson family would not be spared either. The fate of Phoenix Vanguard also depended on whether Caspian won or lost. It also represented the entire fate of Diatoran. If even Caspian couldn't defeat Robert, then there probably wouldn't be anyone else who could match Robert in Diatoran. If the Diatoranian god of war was killed, then countless enemy troops would come from all over. By then, Diatoran would truly be in danger. Caspian continuously dodged among those sword shadows. His steps were incredibly agile, as if he were treading on the wind. In just a moment, Caspian had already escaped danger. Robert was incredibly shocked to see Caspian emerge unscathed from so many sword shadows. Moreover, the Diatanium dagger in Caspian's hand had already slashed over. Immediately, Robert used the longsword in his hand to block Caspian's attack. As a result, his longsword was chopped in half by Caspian's dagger. Robert's longsword was just an ordinary sword, while Caspian's Diatanium dagger was extremely sharp. When Robert saw his weapon broken in half, he was now completely stunned. Without a weapon, resisting Caspian's attacks would become even more difficult. Caspian didn't give him any time to react as he aimed his dagger at Robert's chest. A muffled sound came as the dagger directly pierced into Robert's chest. Robert's eyes widened and he completely stiffened in place. The duel between the two gods of war came to an end. It was as if time froze at that moment, and everyone hadn't fully processed the thrilling duel that just happened. How is this possible? Robert struggled to utter these few words. He couldn't believe that Caspian's strength was so powerful. He had already planned his next retreat. As long as he could kill Caspian, he could repel Diatoranian's troops and then occupy South Lake City. But he unexpectedly lost to Caspian. He had heard before that Caspian's strength had reached the level of a supreme grandmaster, but now, it seemed that Caspian's strength surpassed his by far. Even with all his efforts, he was still not Caspian's match. What? Are you still unwilling to admit the gap between us? In my eyes, you're too weak, Caspian said indifferently. What level of strength do you have? Robert asked. I'll put it this way. When I became a god of war, I was already an ultimate supreme grandmaster. At that time, I wasn't even 20 years old, Caspian said with a smile, as he ruthlessly pulled out his dagger. Blood instantly spewed out of Robert, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. This is your end for attacking Diatoran, Caspian said coldly. Robert's body staggered back a few steps, and he eventually fell directly from the rooftop. A dull sound echoed as Robert crashed to the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone finally understood what had happened. Robert was dead. The arrogant and domineering champion of Videsia had been completely defeated by Caspian. Macy and the members of Phoenix Vanguard, as well as everyone present, were extremely excited to see Caspian defeat Robert. Macy and the others admired Caspian immensely. They could see that Caspian was way too powerful than Robert. Everyone was extremely excited. Caspian was still the undefeated god of war in their hearts. Alicia never expected that Caspian, whom she previously thought was worthless, would turn out to be so powerful. He even defeated Robert. At that moment, she was filled with mixed emotions. Before this, she found Caspian ugly, but now, she found him somewhat handsome. Henry was even more troubled now. Now that Caspian knew he wanted to defect to Videsia, Caspian would definitely not let him go after Diatoran defeated the enemy. The Hudson family members were all extremely frightened when they saw that Robert was killed by Caspian. Their only thought now was to leave as soon as possible. But with the Diatoranian troops all around, they simply couldn't escape. Robert's subordinates were all stunned in place when they saw that Caspian killed their general. Robert had led them through thousands of battles, and they never failed before. But in front of Caspian, Robert unexpectedly had no power to fight back. "Step aside or I'll take her life." A Videsian deputy general pointed a gun at Alicia's head. "Yes, put down your weapons now and let us leave, or the siblings die." Another deputy general pointed a gun at Henry's head. Robert had been killed, and these Videsian soldiers had no path of retreat, so they took the Stuart siblings as hostages. Otherwise, they couldn't leave there. The Stuart siblings were now in a panic. Macy and the members of Phoenix Vanguard looked at Caspian. Without his instruction, they dared not act on their own. Don't listen to them. They're at the end of their ropes now, with no choice left. Either surrender or wait to be killed, Caspian shouted loudly. The Diatoranian soldiers had shed blood and made sacrifices to fight off the enemy. Now that it was time to fully wipe them out, how could they let them go? Hearing Caspian's words, Macy and the others raised their guns. Robert's troops saw their inevitable defeat but dared not shoot at the Stuart siblings. After all, they were their lifeline. "Caspian, these are your wife's brother and sister. Don't you care about them? Believe it or not, we'll kill them right now," the deputy general said fiercely. "Are you all idiots? Do you think threatening me like this will work? I'm the Diatoranian god of war. How could I let you go for two ordinary people? If I do that, will I be worthy of holding this position?" Caspian said. The Videsian soldiers were extremely uneasy when they heard Caspian say this. They also understood this method may not work against Caspian, but this was their last hope. "How will you explain to the Stuart family if they die?" The deputy general tried to convince Caspian. "It seems you don't understand the situation of the Stuart family at all. This woman has been causing trouble for me all along. Why should I care about her life or death? She's of no value to me," Caspian said coldly. He said this for Alicia's sake. Only by this could he save her. After all, Caspian had witnessed Alicia's resistance under Videsia's interrogation. Meanwhile, Alicia thought this was Caspian's actual thought. She was extremely terrified now. She originally thought that Caspian wouldn't care about the past, but who would have thought he would be so petty? "And you don't care about Willow's brother?" The deputy was dumbfounded. "Henry was planning to defect to your country anyway. I have no reason to save such a traitor. I detest traitors like him the most. You might as well kill him now to spare my hands from getting dirty," Caspian said. Chapter 610 Capturing the Hudson Family. Henry felt extremely desperate upon hearing Caspian's words. But he didn't want to die like this. "Caspian, I was confused before. I was wrong. You must save me. Although I had thoughts of defecting, I didn't actually betray the country," Henry pleaded. "Shut up! This all happened because of your stupidity. If you didn't want to betray the country, you wouldn't have come to the Hudson residence. If you had left South Lake City with the Stuart family, you wouldn't have been beaten up like this," Caspian exclaimed angrily. Caspian's words made Henry feel deeply ashamed. The deputy general of Videsia also realized that the Stuart siblings were of no value to him because Caspian didn't care about them at all. "Caspian, I heard you listen to your wife very much. If your wife knows that don't care about the lives of the Stuart siblings, she'll definitely scold you severely when you return. Aren't you worried?" The deputy general tried to persuade Caspian once again. They had actually investigated Caspian a long time ago, so he came up with another reason. Caspian didn't directly answer the question. He glanced at Macy and signaled her to take action. Macy understood Caspian's meaning from his gaze. After working with him for so long, they had developed some tacit understanding. "I didn't expect your information to be so detailed. But don't you know that my wife has cut all ties with the Stuart family?" "How funny," Caspian said with a smile. The Stuart siblings felt extremely desperate when they saw Caspian's indifferent appearance. The deputy general was also at a loss now. The soldiers of Videsia didn't know what to do now. Judging from the current situation, it seemed that they couldn't escape. The Hudson family saw how cold-blooded Caspian was and felt extremely uneasy. If they were caught by him, they would undoubtedly die. They indeed were traitors. "Are you all done? If you're going to do something, do it quickly. You're just wasting time," Caspian said impatiently. The deputy general trembled all over. The Stuart siblings were their trump card. and they had planned to use them as hostages to negotiate their way out of here. Who knew that Caspian didn't care about the lives of the Stewart siblings at all? If they killed the Stewart siblings, they would lose their last hope. Caspian, you're really ruthless. If you don't want to save us, just say so. You don't have to ask them to kill us. I'll haunt you even if I become a ghost, Alicia said angrily. Suddenly, 2 gunshots rang out, and 2 bullets flew toward the enemies behind the Stewart siblings. The sudden turn of events caught everyone off guard. No one expected Macy to suddenly open fire at this moment. The Stewart siblings thought that Macy was going to fire at them and closed their eyes. They hated Caspian because he dared to ask the enemy to shoot them. The siblings felt the bullets fly past their heads. The 2 bullets hit the enemies behind them. After being shot, the enemies fell to the ground dead. The Stewart siblings turned their heads and saw the 2 enemies who had been shot dead. The 2 enemy soldiers had their eyes wide open, which looked extremely terrifying. At this moment, the Stewart siblings finally understood that Macy had been waiting for the right moment to save them. Fire! Seeing this scene, the remaining Videsian soldiers knew that they had no chance of survival. They could only fight back desperately. If they could kill Caspian, even dying in battle would be worth it. Just as Robert's subordinates were about to open fire, Macy and Phoenix Vanguard had already taken action. Many of the Videsian troops were hit by bullets and died. The 2 sides once again engaged in a fierce battle. Seeing this scene, the Hudson family members were scared and hid inside the villa. The Stewart siblings were completely stunned. They were stuck in the middle with nowhere to hide. Seeing that the siblings were in danger amidst the gunfire, Caspian quickly jumped down the roof. He was ready to rescue them. As the Diatoranian god of war, if he couldn't even protect his wife's siblings, it would ruin his reputation. Just as Caspian was about to reach Alicia, a bullet was aimed at her. Caspian carried Alicia and narrowly dodged the bullet. At this moment, another bullet flew toward Henry. Helpless, Caspian kicked him. Ah! Henry screamed in pain and fell to the ground. As he tried to get up, he heard Caspian's voice in his ears. Don't move or you'll be dead. Henry lay there motionless, not daring to make any moves. Caspian dodged the bullets perfectly with his amazing skills and jumped out of danger's way. Alicia felt extremely happy being held by Caspian. This feeling was truly wonderful. She even started admiring Caspian a little now. A blush crept onto Alicia's face as she felt the warmth from Caspian's body. She was very envious of Willow for marrying such a powerful husband. In comparison, her husband, Richard, was a downright villain. With Alicia in his arms, Caspian jumped onto the roof. He didn't have time to rescue Henry. Caspian, please save Henry, Alicia said anxiously. She had changed her attitude toward Caspian now, so she was very polite to him. She felt very honored to have such an amazing brother-in-law. It's too dangerous now. I can't go over there, Caspian said calmly. Henry was surrounded by enemies on all sides. As the Diatoranian god of war, Caspian couldn't take risks for someone like Henry. Please, Henry is my only younger brother. If you don't help him, he'll be beaten to death, Alicia pleaded. You'd better worry about yourself first, Caspian said before jumping down again to command the battle. Phoenix Vanguard took the lead in firing, and the enemies had no time to react. Combined with their small numbers, they were quickly wiped out. Meanwhile, Phoenix Vanguard suffered almost no casualties. Henry remained lying there, not daring to move. It was lucky that he wasn't hit by any bullets. Rush into the villa and capture all the Hudson family members, Caspian ordered. The members of Phoenix Vanguard immediately rushed out. However, some remained behind to protect Caspian. They feared that there might be surviving enemies who would take advantage of the situation and attack Caspian.